Rakday Hawa, Bashem Hawashai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Bow of Steel Shall Strike Him Through. And pretty much this is taken directly from the book of Isaiah, the 54th chapter. And I'm going to read that and go into something that I just ran across just watching the movie Oppenheimer. And when I first started watching the movie, I had the idea to look up the Manhattan Project, which is a part of the whole process that it took to get the first atomic bomb created, which happened here in America. And it was called Manhattan Project. Before it was called that, I believe it was called the Manhattan District because it came from Manhattan, and then they went out to Los Alamos, New Mexico, to gather all those scientists to put together this instrument of war, or this weapon. All right, so I want to get into this and show you something that I found pretty interesting. This is Isaiah 54:16. It says, "Behold, this is the Lord speaking. I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire." And when you read it in other translations, like the NLT, I have created the blacksmith, and that's exactly what a smith is, a blacksmith that works in metals, different metals, forging weapons and different things. You can make chains, you can make, hoofs for horses and different things. But one of the main things that they would work on is metals to make weapons with. All right. And this just happened to be the way that the Lord blessed Esau to forge or put together the same technology or the same weaponry that he's going to use to judge them with. So it says, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. And this today is a representation of the modern day smiths, which would represent the scientists that were used and are still being used to create these different weapons for modern warfare, because all warfares in the past were fought, hand-to-hand combat. It wasn't until the missile was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki that they finally got a new form of fighting wars with that, with the creation of these missiles. So Isaiah 95 says, for every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. And that's how ancient wars were fought. But this, meaning this war, the war to end all wars, shall be with burning and fuel of fire. And what is that burning and fuel of fire? That is the technology or the missiles or the weaponry that the Lord gave Esau, these devils, to judge them with. So going back to Isaiah 54:16, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. What is that instrument? That's talking about the missiles, the weapon that the Lord gave them the ability to create so that they can destroy themselves or they could be judged. It says, and I have created the waster to destroy. Who is the waster to destroy? The missiles. All right, so the NLT says, I have created the blacksmith who fans the coals beneath the forge. And that's how it's made. You take the metal, heat it up, then you take the hammer and you mold it, shape it, and then you stick it in water to temper it. It says, and makes the weapons of destruction. And I have created the armies that destroy. So let's go here, and I want to look up a couple of words here. I'm going to look up the word waster, which is the word shachath, which means to destroy, corrupt, go to ruin, decay. Down here it says what? Destroyer, which brought to mind the quote that Robert J. Oppenheimer, or Robert J. What's his name? Robert J. Oppenheimer, or J. Robert Oppenheimer, quoted when he saw the devastation that nuclear, or that atomic bomb that they created, you know, um, the destruction that came from it. So it says, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," is a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Elamites book, spoken by J. Robert Oppenheimer in reference to the decision to drop the atomic bomb on Japan. The line is from the 32nd verse in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, typically notated as 11.32. This quote is probably the most famous quote from the Bhagavad Gita in the Western world. All right. So now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. So that technology of the missile that was given to them, to these scientists by the Lord, is what became the destroyer of worlds, or the destroyer of these different rulerships that are on the planet Earth. All right. Now, keep in mind that this was done through what's known as the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was a research and development program undertaken during World War II to produce the first nuclear weapons. It was led by the United States in collaboration with the UK and Canada from 1942 to 1946. The project was directed by Major General Leslie Groves and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Nuclear physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer was the director of the Los Alamos Laboratory that designed the bombs. The Army program, they designed the bombs, the waster to destroy. Okay, the waster to destroy. All right, so it says the Army program was designated the Manhattan District, as its first headquarters were in Manhattan, which is in New York, the island of New York, one of the boroughs. The name gradually superseded the official code name, development of substitute materials for the entire project. The project absorbed its earlier British counterpart, tube alloys, and subsumed the program from the American Civilian Office of Scientific Research and Development, because it was the scientists that created this weaponry. You know, the Manhattan Project employed nearly, so it goes on. You can read if you want. to put this in the description box. But the main point here is the nuclear weapons and the scientists that were used to create this devastating weaponry that was to be used to destroy the world. Now, as I was looking up the Manhattan Project, right, I typed in Manhattan, right, and another word came up, and I said, well, let me click on that real quick. And what it was the name Manhattan, meaning. So this name Manhattan is a Gadite word, right? As it says here, Manhattan is the most densely populated and geographically smallest of the 5 boroughs of New York City, coextensive with New York County. Manhattan is the smallest county by geographical area in the U.S. state, blah, blah, blah. So as we come down here, Manhattan is an island located at the northern end of New York Bay between the Hudson East and Harlem rivers. It forms the main borough of New York City and is a major financial, commercial, and cultural center, because it is the center of commerce in, Babylon the Great. Okay. It says the name originated from the Lenape language, where it means the place where we get bows, like the bow and arrow. So I thought that was very interesting that the name Manhattan means the place where we get bows, and the very project that was used to create these missiles was called the Manhattan Project, or the project where we get bows, which is, I have created the smith that blow off the coals in the fire, right? Let's read that again. Matter of fact, let's read it. Isaiah 54:16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. What is that waster? The missiles. NLT, I have created the blacksmith who fans the coals beneath the forge and makes the weapons of destruction. And I have created the armies that destroy. And I have one more scripture in the book of Job. But before we read that, the Lenape word Manhattan means the place where we get bows, you know, or place for gathering the wood to make bows. See, so it was associated with the Manhattan Project, which although it wasn't in Manhattan, but I just found it very interesting that that name Manhattan means what it means, you know, place where we get the bows, and that's exactly what they created. They created an arrow that is shot out of a bow, as you've seen here in the picture, you know, when I first opened up the lesson. So Job chapter 20, verse 24, he shall flee from the iron weapon, which are the missiles, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. All right. So Manhattan is a place where we get the bow. Ain't that something? Man, this is this heavy. Bow. The word there is Quashath, which means bow. Bow for hunting battle. So it is a battle bow. Bowmen, archers. Can also be the rainbow. All right. So the bow is the silo, and the arrow that is shot out of it is the bow is the silo, and the missile is the arrow. All right. The place where we get the bow. That's something. Let's go back. So it says, let's read that again. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. It is drawn and cometh out of the body. What is that body? The silo, the nuclear silo, or the bow. Yea, the glittering sword, which is the missile or the arrow, cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him, right? Because this causes great terror. And the movie, the Spirit been having me watching these different, nuclear destruction movies. Like I watched a few days ago, I watched 1983, about the first hour of it. I'm sorry, not 1983. That's the year it was made. The day after, which came out in 1983, and they show you the devastation. And back then, people were scared and nervous. So this is causing great terror. And when the missiles actually fly, which they will, that's going to cause great terror also. And I also started watching the other movie, which I never saw before. It came out the next year in 1984. It's the British equivalent of it, which is known as Threads. And Elder Apostle, I remember him mentioning that name Threads, but I never saw the movie. I never knew that there was an actual movie called Threads and what it was about. But I remember hearing the name from Elder Apostle Tar. So I clicked on it and I watched some of it. And they brought out like the same thing, as they did in 1984. All right, so let's look up some of these. It says the NLT, the arrow is pulled from their back, and the arrowhead glistens with blood. The terrors of death are upon them, right? Because once those missiles are shot and they find out that it's no longer a test, they're going to be scared. Terror shall make him afraid on every side, and shall drive him to his feet. All darkness shall be hid in his secret places. A fire not blown shall consume him. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle, because his place is going to be burnt up. The day cometh that shall burn as an oven. All right, that's that great and terrible day of the Lord, when he, lets out his indignation and destroys this place. So this bow, which is heavy, because the project was named the Manhattan Project, and the name Manhattan once again means the place where we get bows, or place for gathering the wood to make bows. And that's just happened to be the name of the project that the Lord made these devils use in creating, the nuclear missiles, through these scientists and physicists that put this thing together. So I found that very interesting. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.